Welcome to the Feria Techcast, where we bring you all things science, engineering, technology, and innovation. Today, we are joined by William Hollis, a self-taught software engineer and founder who is bridging two seemingly distant worlds, cutting-edge AI and real-world real estate. From engineering AI solutions for global giants like Disney and Nike, Hollis identified a critical gap in how capital is raised. He's now the founder and CEO of Raise AI, where he's building intelligent systems to automate investor communication and streamline fundraising for real estate professionals. His journey is a masterclass in applying robust software engineering principles from one domain to completely disrupt another, turning clunky spreadsheets and manual follow-ups into a seamless AI-driven workflow. Hollis, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Yeah, I am excited to have you here. So let's dive in. Your career arc is quite fascinating, from building AI for customer experience at Disney and Nike to now automating investor communication for real estate. So, what was the specific aha moment in real estate that made you see it as a system that could be optimized with the same AI principles?
Great question. Yeah. So I always wanted to invest in real estate since I was a little child. We can talk about that story as well. But for me, as I came into the real estate space, and it was really when I started to look at investing in larger investment types. So, like multifamily buildings, ground up construction of buildings, industrial, the kinds of investments that require, frankly, a lot more money to get the deal done. And then that means you have to coordinate with a lot more parties, right? You have to start to bring in investors and things like that. So when I started to look at this space, and I started to meet people who were already in the space and see how they were doing business, essentially, how did they keep track of new investors they met versus investors who had already invested in a deal versus an investor who said, hey, not right now, call me again in 3 months, that sort of thing. How are they keeping track of all this data? How are they keeping track of all this follow up? And that's where I saw the gap, that a lot of people were using pen and pad, like legitimate paper Rolodexes with, names in them and things like that, and very complicated Excel spreadsheets, or they had 5 or 6 different software where some data was over here, other data was over there, other data was over there. That's where I saw the opportunity to really leverage some of the things that I'd done on the enterprise level with these smaller businesses as well.
Fantastic. Let's get technical. When you talk about an AI-powered CRM, what does it actually mean under the hood? Is it mostly about natural language processing for communication, predictive analytics for investor matching, or something entirely different?
A little bit of both. So there's definitely some natural language processing. Nowadays we rely on a lot of the big large language models that are available, the open AIs, Claudes, Grok, those sorts of things, those large language models that handle most of that natural language processing, or really conversational capabilities that we're become so used to with AI. So we leverage all of those things for investor communication from the moment the investor raises their hand or clicks on an ad or, joins a mailing list. The AI starts to interact conversationally there. But the beauty of Raise AI is that it's a very interconnected tool. So it's designed to be plugged into all areas of the your real estate business. So it's always aware of where an investor is in their journey. We also use a lot of data enrichment. So meaning as an investor comes in, we go out on the internet to try to find out more about who this person is, what kind of opportunities would they be most interested in, potential indicators of their perhaps liquidity, are they accredited or not, are they a part of certain institutions or not, and all of those give us markers that kind of help to guide the AI, not only conversationally, but it helps to guide the real estate investor, the operator or the syndicator, on how they should interact with that investor as well. So it's a little bit of a combination of that natural language processing with the advanced data analytics.
All right. That's really insightful. So you are a self-taught software engineer. So how did that part, learning to build outside a traditional computer science degree, shape the way you approach and solve technical problems differently in your companies?
Great question. The biggest thing I would say is that I typically look for the simplest solution. There's power in not knowing what you don't know, right? So sometimes when we have a lot of knowledge on a topic, we end up developing very complex solutions to it because we know all of the things that are capable. So we get this thing from there, that thing, and we end up building this very complex tool that maybe it works really well, but it's not simple and it takes more time to maintain, et cetera, more time to train other people on as well. So I would say something unique that I've noticed is I'm very good at finding the simplest, easiest to maintain approach to building out software solutions, whether that's an AI tool or a web app or a mobile app, all those sorts of things, websites. I'm always looking for the simple way because that's how I learned. I learned on YouTube mostly. I mean, and a few other resources, courses that I took, online courses that I took, but all of that is the simplest way to go about doing things, right? They're just trying to teach you enough in the 20-minute video for you to learn how to do something, and that's kind of how I approach all the tasks.
So, Hollis, investor relationships are built on trust and personal connection. How do you architect an AI system to enhance and scale that personal touch without making a communication feel robotic or impersonal?
So our focus is making sure our AI tools have agents have clear objectives. Something we found actually when working with larger enterprise companies who have millions and millions of customers, right? So their AI tools, their AI agents have more conversations than anyone's. People don't mind speaking to an AI. In fact, they prefer to speak to an AI when the objective and the end goal of that conversation is clear. So, for example, if you call a restaurant, and you're trying to make a reservation for the restaurant, and it's very simple, you say, "Hey, I want to come to dinner Friday. I've got 4 people. Do you have any time after 8 p.m.?" And there's an AI interaction there, and the AI says, "Okay, great. Friday, 4 people. How's 8:30?" Yes, click, hang up the phone. People love that kind of interaction. So there's a balance between understanding when a conversation or interaction needs to be highly personalized versus when it's just very objective based and we're just trying to kind of move through a process. So that's one thing that we do is make sure that anytime we have an AI agent interacting or having a conversation with an investor, the AI's objective is very clear. And then when there's additional touches that are needed, that trust building, those things, we have the AI gather that data, and then we have a person who to reach out to that investor so that there's still that personal connection. But now the person who is reaching out to the investor to manage that relationship is better prepared because the AI has presented, gathered more information for them to be able to enhance that interaction with that investor.
All right. So you've worked on both sides, building tech for massive global brands and now for your own startup. What is the most significant difference in how you approach AI system architecture and development for a startup versus for a corporate giants like Disney?
Big difference. The cool thing when you're building your own business or working with smaller businesses that you can kind of do whatever you want. The world is your oyster, right? There's not as many hoops to jump through when it comes to compliance and robust infrastructure that's necessary just based on the number of users that you will have on a given platform, right? So I'll give you an example. We built an AI system for the Canadian Transportation Authority. I forget the exact name. I want to say it was called Presto, if I'm not mistaken. But basically, the Metropolitan Transportation Authority of for a large portion of Canada, millions, if not billions, of users interactions with this tool on a very regular basis. So we needed a very robust technical infrastructure to be able to just support the number of interactions and transactions that were happening with that AI tool. And when you have to build that kind of infrastructure, it opens you up to different types of issues that you just don't run into when you're operating on a much smaller scale. So I would say that's the number one difference. The other difference is on a small scale, you can incorporate more third-party tools that will shorten your development timeline. So you're able to develop things quicker when you can borrow frameworks and adopt different tools that are out there. Whereas large enterprises often want more control over where data passes and how data moves from system to system. And so there's not a lot of ability to incorporate some of these pre-built third-party tools that expedite the development process. So that's another thing. You can go a little bit faster when you're building, for a startup, or you're building, working with smaller businesses as well.
Great. That's really insightful. So, for the developers in our audience, what does the tech stack for a modern AI-driven SaaS product in a regulated industry like real estate look like? What are the key components from data ingestion to user interface?
Great question. I would say it varies pretty widely. We're really living a really interesting time where, there are new tools that pop up every day, just about. It seems like every day there's a new framework, there's a new AI agent builder, new front end tools like these Lovable and Base 44 and Replit, all these tools that are great at not only prototyping now, but they also are able to build, front end softwares. There's lightweight databases, whereas before we were, writing complex SQL queries and joins. Now you've got, Supabase and those types of tools, MongoDB Lite, all these tools that you can use that are very simple, lightweight database tools that can be deployed anywhere. Whereas before we had to set up our own Linux servers for hosting things on the back end. Now you've got, tools like Heroku we used back previously. Now you've got things like Netlify and all these tools that are like these lightweight server side infrastructure tools that allow us to build and deploy things very, very rapidly. So, the 4 or 5 tools I just mentioned, by next week, it's probably going to be a completely different thing that's available and that people are focused on using. That's just how fast the technology is changing right now with AI.
Okay, so Hollis, real estate capital raising involves sensitive financial data. So, how do you bake security and data privacy into the very foundation of your AI systems? And what are the unique compliance challenge you face?
Very good question. So the number one security measure that we take is don't collect people's data. That's the number one thing where people can get it, can misunderstand. There's one thing about collecting demographic data, right? Which is just, you Google my name, you're probably going to find out I live in the United States, probably what part of the world I live in, more than likely, right? Those are things that are just out there on the internet. But when it comes to saving people information, specific personal identifiable information, we don't save any of that. So if anybody, even if you come into one of our AI tools and you're talking to the tool and you just start to spill the beans, you start to tell the AI everything about your life and all the intimate details, we actually just scrub all that data off. So anything that seems to be, security driven personal identifiable information, we're able to just scrub that out to begin with. The other side of it is we also use some third party tools for platforms that are already secure. Meaning, in real estate investing, obviously there's the movement of money, right? So our software does not directly handle those transactions. We use softwares like Plaid or direct connections to the bank, and let those software that have the robust security handle those interactions directly. So we're very sensitive to that because we know how serious it is, especially in a space like real estate investing. So we really try to leave those kinds of interactions to the institutions that have the highest level of security available.
So, looking back at your work for the big companies like Nike and Disney, what is one technical lesson, or say, for example, a piece of code or architecture from those projects that you directly repurposed or adapted for Raise AI?
I would say the number one thing is the chat interface that we built. So back at that time when I was working for those large enterprise companies, the firm I worked for was named Creative Virtual. CV was very focused on creating a good user experience, right? So nice chat interface that was simple, very intuitive, accessible for users who maybe were using screen readers and those sort of things. So those standards have, I mean, I've used a lot of those things. I draw on those principles very, very regularly from a code perspective. The other thing that's not exactly code, but it's more of principles, because I had the opportunity to work for those enterprises and I had the opportunity to analyze so many conversations that people had with the AI tools. I really began to get a very good understanding for when to use AI and when not to use AI. And that is where I notice a lot of people in the AI industry get it wrong. AI, we're still human beings at the end of the day. If I came on this podcast and it turned out Ezekiel was an AI, I would just hang up. But in our minds, we sometimes want to get to that place where it's just, throw AI at it, let the AI take care of it. And there's times when that's completely fine. But there's other times when it's not, and it's not always obvious when that is. And so I've had the opportunity to look at it, the data in great detail because of the volume of transactions I had exposure to, and that's really helped orient Raise AI.
Okay, so for the engineers and entrepreneurs listening, what is common technical mistake you see people make when they try to apply AI to a traditional industry, like for example, real estate?
Context is probably the number one issue. So, for an example, in the real estate private equity space, right, most deals in a specific asset class are relatively similar from the outside looking in. So, for example, if you have a class A or a upscale multifamily building that's, being constructed, generally you're going to have a lot of the same timelines, relatively similar deal structure, relatively similar returns. However, so if you ask the AI to, hey, take a look at this deal, is it a good deal or not? Just based on those things, you might get the same answer no matter what deal you put in because it's generally going to be the same. But understanding that we need to give AI a lot of context. Anytime we ask it to do anything complex, we have to give it a lot of context. AI is not it's good at making assumptions, but they're not necessarily the assumptions we think it's going to make, right? So doesn't think the same way we do. It doesn't analyze context the same way we do. So we need to make sure we give AI enough contextual data, whether that's creating a RAG system, so that you can continuously update its knowledge base, whether that's on an individual, analysis by analysis basis, giving it specific data for everything that you wanted to analyze, or specific context around everything you wanted to analyze. However that looks for your use case, the context is maybe the, the most important part that people tend to miss out on. And, that then you don't get the results that you're expecting.
Okay, so Hollis, what has been the biggest challenge in educating your market on why they actually need an AI-powered system rather than just a better spreadsheet?
There's a lot of fear around AI, which I think is always the case whenever there's really new technology that comes out. People are very uncertain about it. Is it just a gimmick that's going to make a lot of noise and then it's going to disappear? Is it secure, right? Because we're dealing with large sums of money and different high net worth individuals. There's a lot of resistance to AI because people feel replaced as well. So it's almost an emotional component that comes into play with AI. So those are definite challenges that we navigate. And then also the speed of the industry. I mean, I don't think we've ever seen a technology that moves this fast. So, we're on this podcast today and I can list off different ways that we're doing things, but in 2 weeks, they're going to be obsolete in some ways. And there's probably going to be a faster, better, smarter way to go about doing it. And so that's a difficult thing as well is we talk to clients and maybe the client has heard about something that I haven't, which is totally possible. I don't never claim to know everything. And I tell that to clients all the time. So those are all pretty interesting challenges that are a little bit unique, I think, to AI technology when we talk about user adoption.
All right. So, as a founder with a deep technical background, how do you split your time between writing code or architecting systems and the other demands of being a CEO? Is it a struggle to let go of the technical work?
That's a great question. And the real answer is I don't do a good job. It's very, very challenging. It's very, very challenging. Part of it is I really love to code. I like to make things, you know what I mean? I like to that side of things, but obviously there's the business side to run. So, build a team, obviously, outsource things when you can. Time blocking is huge for me. Anybody who's, in the engineering space, coding, or really any kind of deep work knows that you need 2 to 3 hour blocks to really get into that flow state to really lock in and be productive, right? So I use an AI calendar actually. I recommend this tool to everybody, reclaim.ai. It's a calendar tool from Dropbox. It integrates with our ClickUp system, which is what we use for project management and task management. I use that for my personal life, professional life, business, everything is in ClickUp that syncs to this reclaim.ai tool, which blocks out my time 2 or 3 weeks ahead. And so it's a juggle. I don't really have a good answer, but trying to use time blocking with some of these AI tools is doing my best, put it that way.
Great, great, great. Thanks for sharing that AI too. I'll definitely, consider checking it out for myself too. So, Hollis, looking at the future, what is an emerging AI technology or technique that you believe will become standard for all B2B SaaS platforms in the next 2 to 3 years?
The number one thing is definitely AI sales. So right now, anybody who's ever sold anything knows that speed to lead, right? How fast do you contact somebody when they show interest in your product is the number one success KPI in digital marketing, right? How fast someone clicks on your ad, how quickly do you contact them has a direct correlation to how many of those leads you close. AI is the ultimate disruptor in that space, right? There were entire call centers dedicated to exactly that, making sure we call people when the leads click the button. In the next 2 to 3 years, that's all going to be AI for sure. Voice AI is gotten way better than I ever thought it would. I mean, we were building voice AIs in 2015, 2016, and they were terrible. Now voice AI is really good. Video AI is also, video sales letters built by AI have also become really good. The chat, we're all familiar with how good those things have become. So I think that's the number one disruption, like bar none, in the digital marketing space. It's AI sales.
Hmm. Okay, that was really insightful, Hollis. So, part of the theme of this podcast is centered around innovation. So, for that reason, I'd like to kind of ask a general question to all the guests that I interview on this podcast. A question centered around innovation. So, in your work, bridging the worlds of sophisticated AI with the very human-driven industry of real estate, what does the word innovation truly mean to you?
Good question. I'll start by saying I think it's become more difficult than ever to innovate because of AI. AI allows you to
Mm.
essentially copy anybody's work at any time, right? You can go
Yeah,
to Lovable right now and say, "Hey, build a clone of Airbnb.com,"
yeah, I've
and
seen
it can do it.
several videos like that.
Yeah, yeah, right. So the question is, in an age when anybody can make anything, how do you really innovate? But it's something I've given a lot of thought to lately, and I think innovation in this day and age to me means connectivity, right? So connectivity and specificity. And I say those things together because the specificity is important to businesses. Obviously, ChatGPT works for everybody. We all know you go there, you know, have your conversation, say whatever you want. But how do you make ChatGPT work best for podcasting? In particular, let's
Mm.
say I said podcasting is the business, these are the people I want to help. How do I make ChatGPT most powerful for podcasting? And that relates directly to connectivity, right? A podcaster, you have probably between 5 and 10 different software that you need to use to syndicate your podcast, right? We're on
Yeah.
Riverside right now. You've got your recording stuff. You might have some sort of video editing software. You might have some social media posting type of software, something to create clips for you, all these different things. So, how do I make my AI tool specific to connect to all these tools to create a really robust system that is specific to an industry? And I think that's where we can innovate right now and create AI agents that are really useful for specific things. And it's by drilling down into the niches and understanding how they work and building AI that connects all the pieces necessary to do business in that field.
Great, great, great. That's indeed an interesting perspective to see innovation from. Finally, Hollis, for our listeners who are technical founders or engineers inspired by your journey, what's the best place for them to go learn more about your work and the tools that you are building at Raise AI?
Yeah, follow me on LinkedIn. Very active there. You can just look up William Hollis or REI Hollis, Real Estate Investing Hollis. You'll find me under that moniker as well. Always happy to have conversations.
Great, Hollis. It's been a really interesting and insightful conversation with you, and I am indeed honored to have you on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it. Great time.